I'm sure married life shouldn't be so difficult. But marriage to Joanna was more difficult than I could have imagined. The grumbling and complaining just seemed endless. Everything I did was wrong. Before we started dating, I had many hobbies, mainly active recreation and sports, as well as cycling and playing football. Over the years, this all faded away, with Joe saying that we couldn't afford it, that we didn't have time, or that she had ordered something else for the same day. I lost contact with more and more friends, and did not participate in trips and events. I was so infatuated with Joe that it took me years to realize what was happening, and it was only when I looked back after a few beers that I realized how much I had missed. Why marry someone if they are so perfect, and then try to change them? Even my friends and family became problems, not educated enough, drinking too much, or being too loud and rude to Joe's sensibilities. She seemed to take pride in her ability to control our lives and everything that happened in it. There is no end to it. Earn more, work even more, make lists of tasks. All this has become a habit for her. When we first started dating, she was caring, attentive, and quite flexible. There were a few hints of self-demanding, nothing alarming, and I was fascinated by it. Joanna Farrington Hall, née Farrington, she couldn't give up her maiden name, was a stunning woman from a wealthy family. I am Phil Hall, of course, not stunning and not that rich, but relative to myself, I have achieved good results. Decent job and income, many friends and hobbies, life is good. And then I met Joe, and everything got even better. Tall with long, straight blonde hair, pale skin, and a graceful English appearance, Joe commands attention. Her blue eyes seem as alive as her personality, always darting around, but with an intense gaze. She is smart, determined, and well aware that she influences most males, but she knows how to deflect unwanted attention. No one was as shocked as I was when she asked me out. I just couldn't understand it. She was clearly out of my league, and I told her so. I'm sick of all these rich, arrogant assholes messing with me. You look different, maybe kinder, and I see that you often smile and joke with your friends. I like it. Next time you'll tell me that I'm a nice guy, and that's not the best reason for a date. She laughed, and she had me in her arms, that smile and eye contact. There was no way I could resist her, and she knew it. I literally lost my breath. I had to concentrate on breathing, and it felt like my heart was about to jump out of my chest. Despite my doubts and the fact that it was very early, I began to think that everything could work out. Joe was truly pleasant company and also very attractive. She worked a lot on her appearance, dressed in designer clothes, used the services of a personal trainer, visited spas and beauty treatments. In general, she spared no expense, and it worked. She continues to look even better in adulthood. Our engagement was going smoothly until an incident happened with an old family friend and her ex, Richard Askew. I caught Joe meeting him for drinks. They seemed to be quite close friends, and he held her hands over the table. I was about to leave, but then I thought, screw it, and walked over, sitting down on the chair next to them. Well, that's nice. Joe's eyes widened, and she removed her hands from the table. It's not what you're thinking. I was explaining to Richard that we were now engaged, and I couldn't date him again. In fact, then the only thing that confuses me is that you are holding hands and those loving eyes. Maybe it's just the wrong time, and you didn't have a chance to leave me first. No, I swear, now Richard is just a friend. I needed to explain everything personally to do everything right. I love you and want to marry you. I looked at Richard. What can you say in your defense? He seemed in no hurry to answer the self-confident bastard. Joanna is absolutely right. I asked her out without knowing she was engaged, and I'm glad she thinks highly enough of me to explain everything in person. I don't want to come between you. The words made sense, but I didn't like something about him. And he continued, I think I'd better leave you two to sort out your differences. Honestly, I wish you both the best. And also, Phil, you had a 1 in a million chance. You are a very lucky guy. Joe looked at me. Sorry, I should have told you that I was dating him. Are you telling me the truth, Joe? If it's not me you want, then it's better to sort things out now. You are all I need, please. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm all yours." Joe seemed determined to make amends in the bedroom, and I wasn't going to complain, even embellishing my experience a little, because I liked the way she was making amends. There was a week left before the wedding, and I was already starting to get tired of the fact that I really was lucky. Only my mom seemed to think I was a good deal for Joe too. It wasn't the remarks themselves that bothered me so much as the fact that Joe seemed delighted by them. I was hoping to get at least some kind of protection or support. Maybe a hint that she was lucky too, or that I was a great guy, but it didn't come. Our conversations became more and more one-sided, and more attention was paid to her. At first, I chalked it up to wedding stress. However, much of this was stressful for me too. My initial proposal for a small celebration with close friends was rejected out of hand. The wedding went beyond our original plans and budget, but she had to have the perfect dress, the perfect venue, and the cake, and the ring, and her second cousins had to be added to the guest list, which at that point numbered nearly 270 people. I seemed to get lost in the shuffle. I was often instructed, but usually ignored. I wondered if it would be noticeable if I just didn't show up, and I thought again about why she was marrying me. Despite all my fears, I still came, and the wedding went just fine, right down to the speeches. Her father's speech was more like a lecture addressed to me about how I should support my princess in the way she was used to. Her mother smiled at the same time, but I didn't. I really didn't expect the welcome to the family speech. Joe noticed the look on my face and stood next to me, and I would like to drink to the fact that our two wonderful families will be united by the love that Phil and I share. She gave her father a scathing look as she sat back down. At least I wasn't the only one who felt disapproval. The rest of the day passed without incident. After a whirlwind honeymoon, we settled into married life, and 18 months later our first. And as it turned out, only daughter Jade was born. And she was an absolute miracle to me. Joe struggled with postpartum depression and was determined that she would never go through the trauma of childbirth again. As a result, she declared that Jade would be our only offspring. Joe knew that I always wanted to have more children, but I decided not to have the conversation because she wasn't handling motherhood very well. I did everything I could, taking upon myself about "I'm sorry" part of the worries. When Jade turned 8, Joe wanted to go back to work. Her father was well connected and got her a job raising funds for a charity. It was only later that I learned that the chief executive of this charity was Richard Askew. She had been working there for over a year when I was invited along with other partners and families to a summer social event. This year it had a medieval theme with games and fundraising events for the charity. Most were dressed in fancy dress, the most popular being knights and ladies of the manor. To Joe's disappointment, I avoided participating in this event. She bought a lady of the manor outfit with an embroidered tunic, velvet headdress, bowler hat, and silk veil. There were all sorts of games, mock hand-to-hand combat with fake weapons and electronic sensors, knocking each other off logs over the water, and archery competitions. Richard won the mock fencing tournament. Only 4 people could ride well enough to compete. They used foam spears which were nonetheless quite heavy, and managed to land several hits on the electronic shield sensors. They even managed to get one guy off his horse, although it looked like he would have fallen anyway. To be honest, it was all funny and fun. Then, in front of everyone, Richard approached Joe and asked her for a small souvenir. She took off her veil and tied it to his spear, receiving applause. After that, flirting began before my eyes. I was unhappy that Joe was spending so much time with her boss, so I told her off. "What the hell are you up to?" She laughed. "I don't know. The young knight won my favor." "This is not funny, Joe." "Come on, Phil. Aren't you going to fight for your damsel in distress? Save her from a young scoundrel with a bad reputation." "I shouldn't do this, and you don't look upset at all. On the contrary, you like it. We are married, and I thought we were committed to each other. Calm down. It's just a joke. Is it true?" You two turned on each other, and it makes me wonder what else you might be doing at work with these words I left. And if I hoped that she would follow me, I was sorely mistaken. I left the hall without the slightest idea of where to go. When in doubt, find a pub, and I spotted one called Farmer's Rest and thought it would do just fine. I sat in the bar, still angry, drinking my first pint. By the second, I thought my reaction might have been a little over the top. But that was because it was him, Richard asked you, always staying in the background. I tried to think about what I should say to Joe when I got home, but as it turned out, I didn't need to worry. Joe wasn't there. It's scary to think where she could be, but all my SMS remained unanswered. She returned after midnight, but did not speak to me. I was determined not to ask where she was. The next day, we just murmured something in greeting to each other at lunch. That evening, Joe announced that we needed to talk, and I laughed. Why are you laughing? Yes, it's simple. Joe ignored my words and continued. No one, including you, has the right to control me. I admit that since we started working together, I have become closer to Richard again. I don't know what I expected, but certainly not this. Did you have sex with him? Don't be so rude. We have a history together. He was always partial to me. So have you already had sex with him? Stop saying that. I have to be honest and say that the attraction is mutual. Have you already had sex with him? You are such a child. I looked at her silently, incredulously. You left me at a charity event. He was next to me when you weren't there. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding. If you hadn't run away, this would never have happened. Oh, I doubt it, Joe. I think spreading his legs was inevitable for him. One quarrel and you jump into his bed, and you have the audacity to accuse me that it is my fault that you became a traitor. I am not a traitor. Then what's the matter? Is it love? Are you leaving me for him? No, of course not. I love you. What then is a one-time mistake? You feel guilty. This doesn't mean anything. You only love me. It's just sex. What kind of bullshit excuse are you making up? There's no need to react like that. It was a mistake. We quarreled and I was upset. Forgive me. Okay. No, it's not okay. And you managed to quite successfully get into this situation in order to justify yourself. Why tell me about this now? I wanted to be honest and see if we couldn't work things out. I think it's more like you wanted to throw it in my face. You're right about the fact that everything needs to be sorted out, first by getting a divorce. You cannot divorce me. You have no evidence of infidelity, no videos, no tapes, no photographs. What makes you think that I need them in this country when people don't want to be married? They can just get a divorce. This can even be done via the internet without lawyers. There is no need to prove who had sex with whom. There is no difference. I don't even know if there are investigators here. On the other hand, we also don't have alienation of affection lawsuits in this country, which is also a good thing. Otherwise, your precious charity could go under, and then what will the poor animals do? Not to mention Richard and his hefty salary. We won't get a divorce because of this episode. Don't even think about it. If you want to see Jade again, our family has more than enough money to trick you. I looked at the consequences of the divorce. It was a nightmare. Even if I win joint custody, I will be left with absolutely no money and will live in a box with hopefully real walls. How wrong I was about lawyers. Before I knew it, her father's firm had already sent us for a consultation. What it is, nowadays, people cannot make a decision without the help of either a consultant or a lawyer or both. Forget about thinking for yourself. And one more thing. Why should I move out? Because it was you who had an affair. It wasn't a romance, and I need time to find myself and understand what I want. Find yourself, really. I thought the problem was that Richard caught you with your legs spread. This won't help, Mr. Hall. Doctor, Taylor allowed a slight frown to appear on her usually stoic face. Joe intervened during a pause in the conversation. That's not the point. I want you, but I don't know if you can survive it. I'm not content with having to apologize for the next 40 years. Did you apologize? I mean, I've heard the word sorry, but not once have you said it convincingly. Oh, grow up. I apologize and we have to move on. For me, There was no remorse or recognition of the consequences you can't see beyond yourself. If you have any regrets, it's only about yourself, about not living up to your own standards, about Joanna Farrington Hall being a cheater. You don't worry about me except by dictating the terms for us to stay together. You just want to play the victim because I hurt your pride. Maybe this is so. Your cheating definitely hurt me, pride and all. But more than that, I can't accept the fact that the one who should care about me more than anyone else actually doesn't care that much. For God's sake, it was just one time, just sex that doesn't mean anything. I was angry with you, great. You left us for something meaningless. This is even worse, and I don't know if it was just one time. You could have sex with him for months. How dare you? If you can't trust me, then we're screwed and we can end it here. Actually, that's a good idea. A very good one.